Hi, so today we are lucky enough to have an old friend and colleague of mine on, Aaron Gentzler, who is like me, a veteran from Agora, specifically with Agora Financial. Spent many, many years there working on copy, chiefing copy, running a lot of things, and now he is with Mauldin Economics. And Aaron, it's great to have you here.
Thanks. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. It's nice to be talking to you. You and I, I don't want to spoil a surprise of other things that I might talk about, but you're one of my heroes of financial copywriting. Your early influence had a huge impact on me and my development, my early success. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation today.
Thank you. I've been inspired by the stuff you did too. So, and sometimes scared that I couldn't compete with it. So, so there you go.
Cool.
So, Aaron, what you just jump in and maybe we talk about where you got started and how you got into this industry, and just give everybody a little bit of background so they know something about you.
Do you remember the Baltimore City paper, the free weekly that was published?
Oh yeah.
It appeared in like restaurants and coffee shops and sandwich shops, and it showed you where all the concerts were or what the new art opening was. I was like 2 months out of, I just graduated from an MFA program at Johns Hopkins, and I was sitting in a coffee shop one afternoon, and I was like, I got no prospects. All the teaching positions that I had applied for coming out of the MFA, like that's like delayed by months and months and months. And you know, I knew I wasn't going to hear anything, so I'm like, oh man, it's tough times, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do, and like, did I just go through 2 years of a graduate program and I'm going to have absolutely nothing to show for it? Like, am I going to be, I'm going to be like, cut from the team and I'm bagging groceries over here, in a couple of weeks. Anyhow, I'm getting a cup of coffee. I'm reading the city paper and I see one of those Old West style wanted ads in the classified section of Baltimore City paper. And it was wanted financial copywriters. And I was like, wow, that looks interesting. Not only because the ad looked cool, but I was like, copy, that means writing. I just did that. Maybe I can do that a little bit, So anyhow, so I read the ad and I was like, wow, this looks like a cool opportunity. Replied to the ad, came in, that's how I started. It was September of 2006. I started as a junior copywriter. That was what, 17 plus years ago. And it's the only job I have had since. So that cup of coffee, that edition of the Baltimore City paper that day, it was transformational for me.
I don't think I knew that you had an MFA. From Hopkins.
I loved my time. I'll say one quick thing about that. If anybody's thinking about the MFA track versus like trying to get started in copy, I loved my time there. The group of students that I was with, I was some great friendships. I was fortunate to work with some brilliant writers who've won major awards. I loved my time at Johns Hopkins, but I always felt a little bit out of place because the stories and the narratives that had always resonated with me the most didn't seem to be the type of stuff that was en vogue at the time with them, and this type of stories that they were most interested in talking about or helping refine, right? So about halfway through that 2-year program, I was like, maybe like books and short stories and stuff, maybe it's a venue that isn't quite right for me. So I pivoted to screenplays, and I did a lot of self-guided screenplay writing and study my second year. I had like 5 or 6, I want to say, done by the time I graduated at the end of my second year. And they were very supportive of like, the stuff, the pages that I was creating along the way. But I think it was like making that decision to pivot like that from short stories, from, a novella, which was part of the thesis project, to screenplays, gave me a little bit more of a varied background when I had to pivot yet again, in 2006 to learning copy. So I don't know if that's a lesson necessarily, but for like young or less experienced writers out there, my advice would always be to expose yourselves to as many different formats, as many different styles of writing as possible, because it's only going to make your copy stronger.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's interesting to me that I'm finding this out now after knowing you for so long, because I used to live up near Hopkins, and I used to go over there and take, just for fun, I took a class in writing plays and some other stuff there.
Yeah.
And then when I lived in New York, I took some screenplay classes. I didn't didn't produce as much as it sounds like you produced because you were actually in the real program. But I thought for a while that that's what I wanted to do, write novels and short stories and things like that. And then I thought maybe I wanted to write screenplays. And I do think it has. I know when we talk about training writers, we talk about how you've got to sometimes break their habits. You got to break journalism's habits a little bit. You got to break people from trying to be too flowery instead of actually just trying to communicate and sell. But that said, there is a flip side to that, and you're absolutely right. You're exposed to other kinds of writing, and it helps shape the way you think about ideas. And people talk endlessly in the copywriting business about how important it is to be a good storyteller. So you certainly take something away from that. And now with VSLs, we're effectively writing scripts with multiple characters, and you got to write it in different voices and things. So
that's a really good point. That I mean, I'm sure you've said this many times over the years to different writers that you've worked with, but I've said it too. That I mean, I remember, and again, like your experience far exceeds mine, but I remember the first 5-6 years until the advent of the VSL, like the design meetings for getting ready to do a direct mail package, right? And the dozens of tiny little decisions that had to be made when it came to layout for like, where does this media quote sit? How do we format the testimonial box over here? And then the images, and are we doing 4-color, right? Decision. It was like laying out like a newspaper, right? Because that's where originally that's where that format came from. And then one day it's like, all of a sudden we're going to have 2 guys sitting at a desk. It's going to be full video. It's going to be 60 minutes long. We have to make a complete case. We have to be engaging. We have to. It has to be packed with intrigue, and it has to sound completely natural. Okay, go write that instead. So you know what I mean. So it was like this huge, and again, like this is obvious to everybody now because it's been was the VSL 2009, 2010, right? 2010, right? Probably. And and it's like these steps forward appear almost as if out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they take over everything. So like, I mean. Like to be honest with you, like I don't think I remember 2% of the terminology of what it took to lay out a direct mail package because I only did it for a couple of years, and it's like if you put me in that situation again, that's what I started doing. I couldn't have that conversation anymore because we've gone to these new models. It's
I didn't mean to cut you off, but you said something about
go ahead
about pivoting, and it's the same thing. So here you are pivoting in the industry. Things are going to change. There's got to be something that comes along and replaces the VSL. I mean, certainly some things already are, but it's the copywriter who ends up, because it's your thing, and there is no director in the businesses that we usually work with. They're coming to you to ask how it's supposed to look and where the lights should be. And I mean, the last one I was in, somebody was asking me if the socks that the guru was wearing were okay, because they were a different color. So so I think
it's just inside VSL, just within like, let's say like the last like 4 or 5 years, right? So there was like man on the street VSL. There's summit style VSL. There's 2-party conversation VSL at a desk, right? Like a news broadcast. There's VSLs. There's 2-party VSLs that are formatted like the conversation you and I are having right now. There's direct address, right? There's like the urgent bulletin style, right? Where the whole thing is just like it's proclamation based on urgency, right? And then you have podcast style, documentary style, right? Like. And again, this is just in the last 10, 12 years, right? VSL comes out, it's like put the PowerPoint on the screen and guide the viewer through the argument as you would on a page, but don't let them skip around. We're going to put the words in front, the very first kind, right? And now we're doing these, in some cases, very complex and very expensive videos that, I mean, this is an interesting way to start this conversation, to just think about like how far it's come just in the last decade. It's incredible.
Yeah. So with that in mind, there are 2 things I want to ask you about. One is in your time as a copy chief, you work not just with your own copy, but now you're working a lot with other copywriters, and you're trying to figure out how to get that copy best produced and go through. So I want to get your advice to writers who are on the sending end of that copy to a copy chief. And then if we just put it on the back burner, to ask you what you think, how things have changed, how they're maybe changing going forward, and what we should think about, and skills that we should master.
Yeah. As advice to a writer for how to deal with like the environment around your chief, or approval, or edits and revision, these things. It starts by like just always making sure that you put your best foot forward, right? Dot the I's, cross the T's, right? And that starts with a first draft. Like I can tell how how deep the research is right off the bat, even in a first draft, if there's like a sense of consequence on every page, if the golden thread is very well established, if the headline comes in on the first draft and it's already, maybe it's not perfect on the 4Us, but like they're there, right? Like make sure first time out of the gate, you're putting your best foot forward and you're doing as much work as you possibly can when you present the first draft, right? That's going to make your copy chief or whoever's reviewing, or all the processes that it has to go through, that's going to make them feel more comfortable with your idea at the very beginning. Then we do back and forth. Then we do red lines. Then we do revisions. So we're going to add this. We're going to take this away. We're going to move this up here and stuff like that. And at that point, it's just like trust the process, trust the people that you have in your business that are helping you. Like put your ideas out there so that you can put your best foot forward for the audience, for the market. As to how things are changing, I think it's not just compliance. It's not just general sophistication. Like we were talking a second ago about just inside VSL, all the different variations that now exist, all the different ways we can go about putting a message in front of it, whether that's cold traffic, whether it's backends, whatever the case may be. All these different variations that we have. I think well, obviously the compliance environment has changed. Regulatory environment has changed, but I think, and I'm speaking specifically in financial because that's where I've spent 90% of my time over the years. The landscape has become so much more complex than it was for us, let's say, writing direct mail packages in the early 2000s. My Charles Schwab account in 2006, it cost me a lot of money to make a trade, right? The barriers to buying and selling stocks were relatively high. ETF environment, the offerings at places like Vanguard, for example, right? There's no fees. It's super easy. It's point and click. Are you most interested in dividend, right? All the platforms have gone to zero fee. Like it's essentially been gamified, right? For individual investors. It's super easy. There's super low barriers to entry. And everybody, people who are motivated and want to be, like, we're not as in alternative financial publishing. We're not as unique as we may have been 15, 20 years ago, just because the entire investing landscape has changed so much, right? So the challenge for copywriters, for offer creators, for gurus, publishers, whoever, is what are we going to do to stay out there on the fat tail of uniqueness and keep showing people new ideas, new trends that they otherwise wouldn't be exposed to, because that's the type of idea that truly captures somebody's imagination. That's where we need to exist.
Right.
We don't really need the 450-second trading systems USP now, because the uniqueness is completely gone, and it's so difficult to get people to pay attention to it.
Yeah. Well, it seems too like in this environment that we've had for a few years now, it's been the access to information has increased, the facility of getting and receiving, sending out messages has increased. So you've got everybody, this is what they were predicting 20 or 25 years ago about the internet, but think nobody saw it getting to this scale except maybe David Bowie, who did an amazing prediction around 2005 or so on TV. People should look it up on Google. David Bowie talking about the internet, but
Okay.
he I'm talking about David Bowie.
That's fine. We can do that.
We've gotten to this level where everybody can say something, so it's hard to find out who's actually saying something. And we've also gotten to this point where we've all kind of it's easy to make a tribe, so we've all picked a tribe, and you've all got your focus of interest. So it's fractured. The interest is fractured all over the place, and it's harder to identify how people feel one way or the other because there's so many different shades of opinion on things. So what happens now for the last few years? Nobody really knows what the sentiment is like we used to know. Everybody was bullish, everybody was bearish, but now some people are, some people aren't. They did the extremes, and then it's not even a linear thing anymore. They're bearish on this, but bullish on that.
Yep.
So I think it's harder to identify in the financial field. Certainly, it's harder to identify what the fields are that people care about right now.
Well, that's just to kind of double down on your point that you just made. I mean, there was a time when if you had a sense that CNBC, Bloomberg, the Wall Street Journal, and the Financial Times roughly concurred on an idea, you were like, okay, this is in the zeitgeist. This is very strong right now. Well, today, like FinTwit, right, you can find supporting evidence for any theory, up, down, sideways, about anything. And more people in the aggregate, probably, I'm stretching a little bit, but just FinTwit alone, social media alone, right? There's more divergence of opinion on social media than all those other platforms combined in terms of daily eyeballs, right? So to your point, how do you make those assessments of like, what's truly top of mind, right? And a lot of that comes down to testing, right? Being nimble with your being able to move quickly and like go from one thing to the next and continuing to test and refine ideas. That's obviously part of it. But yeah, the information landscape, like you said, it's fractured. Attention is fractured. A dollar is precious, like for economic reasons, right? What the market has been through post COVID, coming out of the lockdowns and such of COVID in the last 2 years, the interest rate environment, risk appetite, like, I mean, it goes on and on. Like, so you have to. Not to sound like an old librarian or anything about this, but that's why it comes down to research. It comes down to the quality of your idea at the start. It comes down to like the differentiation that you're putting in place to make your idea stand apart from everything else that's out there. Like that's the work that you do at the very beginning before you write a 60-page package, before you go all the way to give yourself the best chance to be successful. That's what it takes.
Yeah. So what do you, not to put you on in a position that's very difficult, which we've just said is difficult, predicting what matters right now. What do you see? I know that John Mauldin's had a certain viewpoint about the markets that he's stuck to for a very long time because that's his view.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But what do you guys do to figure out what is at the top of mind for everybody right now?
Well, you gotta be gutsy with your editorial perspectives, right? You need to push your editors to get out there on the fringes, get out there on the margins, and see what the takes are, the ideas and the takeaways and the actions that nobody else is really talking about right now, but are a consequence of all these things that we see in mainstream news, right? Then you use that to kind of inform, like, I'll use AI as an example, right? It's very popular. There's a ton of copy around AI right now. There's a ton of USPs. Like people are changing, people are becoming like AI experts. And it's like, wait a second, like, I don't even know how to use ChatGPT, but I'm doing this, AI is the theme right now. You talk to some people and they're like, we're not even in the top of the first inning. Everything that we've seen so far is prologue to what's coming, right? You talk to other people and they're like, we're already in the trough of disillusionment on the Gartner hype cycle. And what comes next is going to be X, Y, Z, right? We can't even agree on where we are in the life cycle of right? But we know for a fact, based on, the results that we've seen from the offers that are out there, that people are interested in it. They want perspective. They want some context around what it could possibly mean. Some people are scared. They're like, oh, is it going to take all the jobs? Other people are like,
Right.
just show me the money making opportunities, right? So being aware of the thought worm ideas like AI is right now and using them to your advantage, like that's what you have to focus on. And like, it was
Yeah.
like the metaverse a couple of years ago. That's an example that I always use in comparison to what's happening with AI right now. Metaverse comes out and everybody's like, holy smokes, biggest thing ever. Net 4.0, it's going to change everything. Like, I'm still waiting for the metaverse, right? I did an interview a couple months ago, and it was Ray and I did packages around driverless technology, right? 2015, 2016, and it was like, Tesla is going to Tesla, right? The Tesla, Elon Musk, these themes, right? This is another one. But like, weren't we supposed to like no one's driving anymore? We're just like watching TV in the car while we just get shuttled around. Still waiting on that, right? So these things take time, but they capture the consciousness. And when you're in those moments where you can identify what those stories are, those are the stories that you should be telling.
Yeah. And from since we're speaking within the financial industry, it's something that we're both so familiar with. That from the copywriter perspective, I think you find that you're out there, you're hunting in the same way that the editors are, but that the editors, what the editors are doing is that they're finding an idea. They should be finding at a certain level of expertise that the copywriter doesn't necessarily have to have. They might have, but you're hoping that the editor is going to be able to put the depth to it. And that what you're supposed to do is to take the idea that they've found and polish it for fast, clear consumption.
Yeah.
So that you're transmitted to people. So I may have, for AI, for instance, AI is something to me that's very interesting. And I've got my own opinions on where it's going to go and things like that, and certainly the financial editors have opinions on that too. But if you're thinking about how to market it to people, you're right. It's like there's a phase where it's this awareness level thing, or the sophistication level, where people have heard nothing about it, and you're teasing it to them like something that they don't understand, and then you're marketing it to them at the point where they don't really understand it, but they're really excited by it and they want to get in on it. And then you get to the point where maybe we should be scared of it, Armageddon AI, or the bubble's about to pop. And figuring out where we are on that scale, on that timeline or curve or whatever it is difficult.
Just for anybody who's like kind of missing the larger context of what we're talking about right now, go look at crypto. Go look at the cycle of crypto, right? Coming up in 2017 and Thanksgiving, right? That was Thanksgiving 2017 when it made that first spike. And then, 3 months later, we're in the doldrums. Crypto winter, it takes so long to recover. Coming into late 2021, we're doing it all over again. Only there's 3 times the prices now, only for it to happen again. And that we're just now seeing signs of life, in these. So, and everything's different, right? Every advance, every big breakthrough is different. They follow a different timeline. But what happened to crypto, for anybody who's studying kind of like what we're talking about here, it's a really instructive example to look at.
Yeah, crypto went through that. Metaverse kind of did. I felt like that never quite got as high as I wrote a Metaverse promo way too late in the game. In fact, I wrote a Metaverse promo that was about Apple Coin and somehow connected to the use of crypto in the Metaverse. Didn't work.
Yeah, I had one.
I
had one in the works, and I got here's another little insider secret. Do you ever get like halfway down the road on an idea and you writing it, you get bored with it? Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I was like halfway through this metaverse package that I was working on. I was like, I don't know, and I was like, and it was like, you don't want to go, you don't want to open the document. You were like, now I got to go back. Like, that was shit, probably what I did yesterday. Now I got to go back through all that again just to get to the point, right? And I was like, this is a sign. Like you build
It's a sign.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, this is probably bad news. I never even finished it. Yeah, so
yeah. I actually just wrote something recently in the Copywriters Roundtable that was about eating your own cooking, or at least believing in it. That you can't really write about stuff that you don't believe in. Not from an ethical perspective, or it's just, it doesn't come across. You just can't get, if you can't get excited about it, nobody else is going to get excited about it either.
Yeah, so. I remember way back in the day, I remember you saying something similar, and that's one of those things that's always stuck with me. So that's how, you were writing all the big front ends and stuff, but that's how I ended up in tech originally, in biotech. I had a genuine interest in the editorial. I really liked the ideas. And I felt like every time I read an issue, or like I would talk to one of the editors that was in that space at the time, I felt like I learned something. And I was like, oh wow, like I don't know what's going to happen with this company, but it's a really, really great story. And these scientists are working on some super interesting stuff. I want to know more about that. Like, and that's how so it was like, yeah. And again, I'm just going to try to keep racking up the takeaways for junior folks who might be watching.
Yeah,
but listen to that voice in your head that's like, wow, I want to know more about this. Well, that's the stuff that you should be writing about, because your actual, like, in you, your enthusiasm and your passion for those ideas that you're investigating yourself, that's going to come through on the page, and that's going to communicate, what your guru's doing.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice, and maybe a good spot to say thank you, and maybe we could wrap up here.
Sure,
Aaron, it's been great catching up with you, and we keep in touch, and wishing you big success. So
thanks, you too. This was a fun conversation. I'm glad we got a chance to do it. Thanks, buddy.